Welcome to Gruber Power Hour. I'm Erica.
I'm
And this
Pete
is
Gruber, yes. I'll announce myself. And what we have behind us here are capacitors. Yep, there we go. I never know which way to get
I
out of
know.
the way because it's the opposite on our screen here,
Yeah.
in case you're wondering why we can't figure that out. One of the things that I thought we would start with today is we do these podcasts. We do a number of them during the week, 5 of them, I think now. Why do we do them? What's this one targeted for? And I thought that might be a good place to start.
Yeah.
The goal with our podcasts is, and it's a lot of work, by the way, and it's very expensive. If you could see our studio here, there are cameras everywhere and lenses, and there's always something else to buy.
Mhm.
And it's not profitable. Let's
No.
get that on the table.
Yeah.
We're doing this out of the kindness of our hearts. All right. The main reason for these podcasts is to provide some content for our customers and our prospects and people in the industry. And that's true for any of the podcasts that we do. For the Power Podcast, for example, things like how do you recover from a power outage? You've got a data center, you're the IT manager, you've got uninterruptible power systems, and you get a power outage, storm induced or whatever. How do you recover from that?
Yeah.
And usually those questions are asked during the worst times,
Yeah.
after you've had one
When
in
it's
the
already
middle of the
failed.
night. Yeah, exactly. So we spend a lot of time providing information, technical information about how to deal with things like that. And furthermore, we also create tutorial videos on our YouTube channel that deal with these topics. So, but it goes on from there. Things like industry news, for example, new products and technologies, and there's always something evolving. And then we have guest experts from time to time that we either Zoom in or they physically come here and they join us on these podcasts. So it's really a great service for people in the industry, whether they're customers of ours or not. Prospects, that's fine too.
Yep.
And today we're going to dive into something that's very important in the critical power business, which is a component called a capacitor.
A long forgotten
Yes.
product.
And there are a couple of predictable items that are going to fail in this kind of equipment, and not paying attention to it has a huge downside
Extremely.
because you now affect your uptime. And in the world of data centers, co-locations, it's all about uptime.
It's all about load time. All about uptime. Sorry.
Uptime, yes. So capacitors are like batteries. They need to be replaced periodically. In fact, the technology of a capacitor is very close to a battery in that it's a short-term storage device.
It stores.
The difference between a battery and a capacitor is your battery will store energy for a much longer period of time, whereas a capacitor does it very briefly.
Yeah.
If not seconds sometimes, or even milliseconds if it's a small capacitor. And what value that provides is filtering. And we'll get into some of the technical issues here in a moment when we throw up some pictures. But I thought we could talk about what happens in an uninterruptible power system. How often do you need to change capacitors?
Well, usually every 4 to 6 years should be a rule of thumb, but ultimately the life can go up to, in a perfect environment, 8 to 10 years.
Yes, exactly. So you should change those caps within that 8 to 10 year window, because when they start to fail and age, they get resistive. What's inside this guy? And I don't want to open it here. I don't have the tools, and it's messy, and there's electrolyte. There's a jelly roll in here of a metal type tin foil, and there's a liquid electrolyte. And what happens is they age, they begin to dry up. And as they dry up, they get resistive. And if they get resistive, it puts a load on your inverter, and it no longer does its job, which is store energy to take care of ripple currents or to filter. So 8 to 10 years is a good span. And our company, by the way, through a program, Auto Notify,
Yep. I love that auto notify.
actually tracks when your batteries need to be replaced, when your preventive maintenance is due every 6 months.
Yeah.
We'll even we will remind you that your service contract needs to be renewed. Now,
Exactly. So when you're getting calls from Gruber Power Services and their account managers, they're really not trying to annoy you. They're trying to help you understand what it is specifically that you might have forgotten about.
yeah, and it's infrequently that the service contract administrators forget to
Yeah.
renew a service contract, but when it
Right.
happens, they appreciate us
Yep.
giving them a heads up, you
Yep.
know, hey, this thing is due again
This is
for the
about to
next year.
renew. Would you like to?
Right. So again, capacitors like batteries deteriorate with age and eventually reduce filtering and then place a burden on the inverter in your uninterruptible power system, which is one of the most expensive failure points in your UPS.
Yeah, from what I saw in some of the capacitors is it could be as small as like a small drink or as tall as like a Pringles can
Mm-hmm.
in size.
So when they need to be replaced, you want to make sure that you get fresh product. If someone's had these sitting on the shelf, it's no different than the cap aging in your equipment. So what we do is we order these fresh. There are also date codes on these, just like there are on the batteries, so you can tell how much they've aged or if at all.
Yeah, you don't want old capacitors.
Yeah. And we replace these in the uninterruptible power systems nationwide. And of course, our skilled field engineers are involved in this. It's not a customer replaceable item because oftentimes these are mounted in a series of packs or like arrays, which have to be extracted from the UPS. And then all of the mounting hardware needs to be removed. And then you have polarity issues. And you don't want to put one
You
of these in
need a skilled
backwards.
technician to do
Yes,
that.
exactly. So if your equipment is on contract with someone else, your UPS, lighting inverter, whatever it is, you are under no obligation to use your existing service provider for certain things like, battery replacement and batteries where you buy them, in other words.
Yeah, no coverage, all billable.
Right. Shop it is what we're recommending. Shop your capacitor replacements. So the cap replacements are a billable activity. We have service agreement extensions that are available. Things like battery coverage, capacitor coverage could be written into that.
Yeah.
But in the world of risk management, there's, of course, an additional cost.
Absolutely.
It's funded. But typically, capacitors and the batteries are not part of the service contract. They're considered billable. So we recommend that you get quotes on this type of service because it's not inexpensive.
No, get some apples to apples. I mean, it's absolutely worth it. You're going to find that Gruber Power Services can almost beat out a lot of these industry prices as well.
And yeah, the cap replacement is one of the highest maintenance expenses on a UPS. And let me show you why. Jesse, if you can bring up an image, it's called block diagram. And in this diagram, we're going to show you that there are actual capacitor banks, multiples of these that are ganged together in parallel to in the various parts of the UPS. The first part is you've got your input AC filter. Now, these are AC capacitors. Do you notice they've got a silver exterior?
Yeah.
Whereas your DC capacitors, which have polarity, plus and minus, they typically have some form of an insulation around the outside. And then on the, so that's in your rectifier section. And that is a device that converts AC to DC to charge the batteries, which are down below. And that's a schematic diagram for a bunch of batteries there.
Yeah.
And you need DC capacitors in order to filter out the ripple current. And there's another image there, Jesse. If we can go to image AC to DC converter circuit. There we go. This is your typical AC to DC power supply. On the left, you can see the sine wave there, which is, in this country, 60 cycles per second. That transition you see there from plus voltage to minus voltage happens 60 times a second.
Wow.
That then goes through a transformer, steps up or steps down, and you can only do that with AC.
Right.
That's why we've got AC.
Yeah.
Then you go into a full wave bridge rectifier. That's that little square thing there
That's
with
the correction state.
Yes, with those arrows. Those are called diodes. You've got D1 through D4. And that full wave bridge rectifier now creates a waveform comparable to the lower left there. What it essentially does is it removes the, instead of sending the voltage negative below the zero line, it inverts it and puts it above the zero line. So now you have pulsing DC from 0 to plus. Well, you don't want that to charge batteries. You want pure DC.
Correct.
So this is where capacitors come in. And then to the right there, you see what happens when you rectify and provide filtering with a DC capacitor. And what it's actually doing is, you see that excursion from plus to minus to 0 and then back up to plus? That capacitor gets charged as you go up to plus. And then when it goes to minus, it discharges because it's got energy, and it fills in that gap.
Oh, that makes more sense.
And that's how you get rid of some of that ripple current, it's called. And then to further get it
voltage filtering.
Yeah, to further get it perfectly flat, which is ideally what you want if you want pure DC, they put a combination of capacitors and chokes, which does the opposite of a capacitor, but it essentially does the same thing, which is filter out any ripple.
Learn something new every day when I sit with Pete.
All right. So you can test capacitors. And I went over to Gruber Motor Company this morning. We test caps in the Tesla Roadster inverters, for example, power electronics module. They're little small things. And this particular acronym, ESR, stands for Equivalent Series Resistance. So it's an ESR meter, they call it. And by putting these probes on a capacitor, you can read not only the capacitance, but you can read the internal resistance, which is something that you don't want.
Yeah.
You want to get rid of that.
No resistance.
Yep. So we use ESR meters to check capacitors, and that little ESR meter is pretty handy because it will actually check these components in circuit.
Yeah, I remember you showing that to me over there. That was pretty cool.
The other thing that happens to capacitors is they sometimes leak, or they have a little bung right here, which is a pressure relief valve, basically.
Okay.
And if you have a resistive cap, this one is good for up to 450 volts DC peak, 400 nominal, and you have resistance, it starts to warm this up.
Right.
And eventually it will build pressure in here, and that's when that little pressure relief valve will begin to bulge. And what our field engineers look for, of course, that's the advanced stages. They're definitely always during preventive maintenance looking at the caps, looking to make sure there were no premature failures or pressure buildup in the capacitors. Okay. So even with regular use, they say, these are called electrolytic capacitors, will fail by drying out, or they start to represent leakage currents in the equipment.
Don't they start to like add a harmonic noise as they're failing? Sounds like a harmonic noise. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you're asking. The capacitors don't really contribute to the harmonic content.
Okay.
That's a function of the inductors and the kind of power that you're getting, or what other power loads you have in your building.
Makes sense. Okay.
And that's why a UPS is so nice, because the UPS essentially replaces the utility.
Yeah.
The only thing that utility power in a full online UPS is doing is charging your batteries.
Right.
And that doesn't have to be terribly clean, because we're not dealing with microchips that are trying to, run software.
Yeah.
All right. So how is ESR measured? Well, it is measured with low voltage AC signal, and the frequency of the signal affects the measurement, basically.
Yep. And he said, Instagram, Range291 says filtration. Yes, exactly.
Filtration, exactly, yes. All right, so what does this look like inside the UPS? We have another image that we can pop up here, Jesse, and this one is called Capacitor Bank.
Oh, this is cool.
And there are sometimes, as you saw in this earlier image, 3 of these. This is an AC bank because it's got the silver, caps.
Yeah.
And when our field engineers retrofit one of these capacitor banks, they actually end up replacing every single one of these caps.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense.
What we also find is we have these types of capacitor banks in stock, in inventory, that are already pre-built.
Right.
And if you're doing volume and they're not aging, then that's a handy way to send the parts out first, have the field engineer arrive on site, and now it's much less downtime and much less risk by just simply changing the whole banks.
Which is the goal.
Yeah, instead of changing
little
the
to no
caps.
downtime.
Right. Now, the replacements that we do here in the UPS is comparable to what we do with the batteries. And, you know, they need to be changed every 3 to 4 years.
Right. Which most people don't, and it just blows my mind.
And if you don't change your batteries in a timely fashion, then when you need them, which is usually the worst time because you've got a power outage, you realize that, oh, we don't have that 15 minutes ride through time that we were expecting, or even that 1 to 2 minute ride through time, so that the emergency generator, the automatic transfer switch, can kick on and supply, you know, continuous power from an engine generator outside.
Definitely important.
So that's where Auto Notify comes in. We will let you know when these components are due for replacement. And it's all based on, you know, when we do an analysis of the UPS when we go out on site, or feedback from the customer.
Yeah, I find it very, very handy. And I've had plenty of people comment on that. Oh, shoot. Yeah, I forgot. Thank you so much for reminding us. Go ahead and send that order through. And, you know, there were a couple others that were having bells and whistles and ringing and alarms going on. And we had auto notified them about their batteries and their capacitors and that. And they were like, oh, it's the last minute, but I need to get it. And, you know, thankfully we have a lot of great personnel here that can find and or accomplish the order in a timely fashion, especially in an emergency. But that auto notify, pay attention. Don't just put it in the delete box.
Yeah, and it's a completely free service that we offer, and we send an email out every month, actually. And our computer system, we have a big CRM, a customer relationship manager system that tracks not only the contacts, but also all the equipment out there. And the computer tells us, you know, what's due, what's expired, and then from that, we have an auto notify notification go through to you to your email.
And Pete, you want to, on your close-up camera here with the bigger angle, can you hold that thing up again?
Capacitor?
Yeah, there you go. And hold it like right towards your mic. It needs to be in the center for Instagram. There you go.
Oh, Instagram, that's right.
There you go, Instagram.
Thanks for joining us, Instagram. How many platforms did we stream on these days, Jesse?
For this one, right now we're doing, I think, TikTok out there on the phone, and then we have 3 platforms in the background: YouTube, X, and Instagram.
And then the other ones that we are often visible on is LinkedIn, for example, is one for the other.
Facebook.
Facebook. And we enjoy it when people chime in, and it looks like we've got some people doing so at this point. I'll let you.
Highlander, welcome home. We missed you. So we have the same issue with emergency lighting. The PMs don't get done, and then you realize the batteries are bad when you lose power, which is all bad. Yeah, fully agreed. All bad.
And that's a worst case scenario because the lighting inverter is actually designed for safety.
Exactly.
You've got a large stadium. There's a game going on at night, and somebody hits a telephone pole across the street, and the utility drops power.
Exactly.
Well, now your exits aren't lit.
Nope.
It's dark. People can't get out. You've got safety issues.
Lawsuit Central.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. Preventive maintenance. We might as well talk about that a bit too. That also flushes out some of these types of issues.
Absolutely.
Oftentimes we will get a service agreement, a new service agreement, whether it's lighting, inverter, UPS, or whatever, and we do a pre-contract inspection. And then we begin to realize that this equipment has some deferred maintenance that needs to be addressed. We look at the batteries, we look at the capacitors, and then we give a full analysis to the customer to show them where their vulnerabilities are and their liabilities.
And how to bring it up to spec so we can contract it.
And, these days, I find it interesting that uptime is becoming increasingly more important because nobody ever wants to go down.
No.
When Facebook goes down, the whole world
The
knows
end of the
about it. Have you
world.
noticed it? Yeah. When social media goes down, when YouTube goes down. And, it's also tied to financial performance because
Absolutely.
there's so much revenue being generated while the equipment is up.
Absolutely. Yeah. If your payment system goes down and you can't have any payment, guess where your customer's going? They're going to the next best thing.
Yeah. We had a little DEC PDP-11 computer downtown here in the Valley National Bank Tower
Okay.
in the late 1970s.
Okay.
And this was before the age of PCs, personal computers. It was still mainframes, but this was a very small, I guess you could call it a mainframe.
Yeah.
And it was a company well known. It was American Express
Oh, of course.
that had an office there on a 26th floor. Why do I remember this?
Because it's
isn't it?
that intriguing.
Yeah. But we used to get calls regularly on this little PDP-11 go down, and we always noticed that, people there, when this was down, were eating Tums, and they were stressed, and they were frantic, and right? So one day I asked one of they call them DP managers back then, not IT managers.
Right.
That came later. And I asked him, I said, why is this thing so important to your operations? Why is it everybody here is going crazy when this thing is down?
Yeah.
And he said, well, this little computer works the float system in our credit cards.
Oh.
And in between, even minutes of, dead time transactions between that restaurant finally clearing with the bank or
Right.
whatever, this little computer puts it into quick, short-term interest-bearing funds.
Oh.
Using your money, in other words.
Uh-huh.
And this, at that time, they said this thing actually generates hundreds of thousands of dollars per minute
Per minute.
with the float
Now
that
it's
it's involved in.
millions.
Yeah. So you begin to realize the first thing I thought about, well, why do you have such a small PDP-11 computer? Let's get a big dual purpose. At that
Yeah.
time, they had a company called Tandem Computers,
I've heard.
which was completely redundant. There were two big mainframes operating simultaneously.
Okay.
And if anything went down in
Yeah.
one, it just simply alerted the DP manager, hey, we've got an outage on one. You better get it fixed because we no longer have redundancy.
Right. Okay.
It's an interesting migration, this whole IT business.
Gotta love that, though. I mean, I remember when PayPal and what was it? So it was PayPal, Bank of America, Wells Fargo. It wasn't that long ago. It was just a couple months ago. And they all went completely down. And there were so many people that panicked because of our current economy and times. They panicked and they went to the bank and started pulling all their money
Oh, my
out.
God. Yeah.
I started laughing that number one, you're going to a bank that is down. You can't process that payment right now. Like you can't get your money out, but you're all fleeing to the bank. It was quite interesting to just see the panic in people, but not the actual understanding of how the processing works. Lots of people have no idea how that works.
And no bank is 100% liquid. So if you have a run on a bank, you will bankrupt them
Exactly.
fairly quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the one in New York that had to close.
Yeah.
That was interesting. Off topic. Sorry.
Yeah. All right. So interesting, topics that we've been covering today. Is there anything else that you thought you would, that we want to cover?
No, I just think it's emphasizing most of all that your UPS's performance is essential to your business, and to neglect that would be neglecting your business. And so I don't think anyone should do that. And I think, calling Erica at Gruber, extension 401, is going to help you out and going to make things a lot easier when you have such intelligence within our company and so many years of service. And we are an added value service to your company. So if you give us a call, we have free tech support too, 24/7. We can help you. I mean, we're genuinely here to help you, whether it's having to get a part for you or you have a specific budget need that you need to meet. We're able to help you come up with a budgetary cost conscience. And I think, don't put yourself or your business out.
Yeah. You mentioned tech support. It's free. And you don't have to be on contract with us to take advantage of it.
No.
And, I'm asked all the time at Gruber Motor Company, well, you have free this, you have a free roadster matchmaking site instead of auctions, you have a free that, you give away parts at times, all of that.
Yeah.
Why do we do it? Because we appreciate our customers and our community that we're in. And it's, giving back, first of all, and also paying forward.
Paying it forward. Yep. We've
And-
all been so blessed here at Gruber, so why not do that?
Yeah. And if you're totally focused on revenue and money and profits and all
Yeah.
of that, you kind of lose that whole aura.
Yeah, we're
Of
here for
contributing.
not only a relationship with you, but we consider our customers. This is our living room when you walk through. This is our home, and we respect your home as well. And I think that goes a long way in helping everyone succeed in this industry, stay relevant.
And if you've had a power outage, you're on contract with someone else, you
Mhm.
can't get a hold of your provider, feel free to call us.
Yeah.
We're there 24/7, and we'll gladly help you. We're not looking for any compensation
No.
for that.
We just genuinely want to help you and make sure that you maintain, because
just-
that's very important to all businesses in this current community and economy.
Looks like Instagram's chiming in.
Ooh, I love capacitors. Well, thank you, Ellie. We do too.
So it looks like we're running out of topics.
Yeah,
Okay.
we are. I think so. I think this has been a very informative one. And, again, don't forget to replace your capacitors.
Mhm.
Just do it.
We will do a better job, by the way, in the future of staying in contact with our customers. We will be giving our customers some information about where these podcasts are. Where are the tutorials? How can you avail yourself of them?
Mhm.
And we will start to recommend the podcasts in these emails too, to
Yeah,
let you know
absolutely.
when they are. And sometimes even a customer might want to participate. We zoom in a customer with a unusual occurrence or experience with their equipment. I
Yep.
think that'd be fun.
Consider this a Gruber crash course on a weekly basis.
Well, we'll be back next week for another edition of the Gruber Power Services podcast. I'm Pete Gruber.
And I'm Erica Guthrie. See you next week.